Hello, thank you for joining me and welcome to Write On, a video series about writing. I'm Quinne, your host, author of the steampunk series The Captain and the Lady Fair, with book 3 in progress. I've also written a cookbook. Today's topic, POV and Action Tags. There are 3 main categories for POV, first, second, and third. First person is I. First person is written from one character's POV. I rode the steam car to the end of the line. I went to the Mega Mart complex only to find it had been leveled by some unknown force. First person is the most common for writers to use when starting. The idea for it is that it draws the reader in by making the reader feel they are that person in the story. It is the easiest way for some people to write. In first person, the main character is writing the narrative, although the first person can be an observer. I'm not fond of it, especially when it's a female. I just can't identify when I'm reading. Sorry. Having said that, I will say it has been done well. In my youth, I loved the Mars series by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It's written in first person. Second person is you. This is the least common POV. It is telling the reader what they would do and say, and can be off-putting. This is used in writing instructions. Enough said. Third person. He said, she said, John said, Jane said. Third person has a few subcategories. Omni. Most common is the main character's point of view, but can see others' POV and thought if the writer wants to include them. The reader sees what the character sees and knows, and the reader often knows the thoughts in the character's head, inner dialogue, and can switch heads. Inner dialogue is commonly indicated by using italics. Mark continued to polish the bar top. John, stop playing on that phone and get a new keg tapped. Lazy punk kid. Try to do some work today. Omni may see from any POV and know the inner dialogue of any other character. This should be limited to 2 or 3 characters. Being in too many heads can cause confusion. Most often used in romance, switching from one character to the other, often done by chapter. One chapter from his POV, the next chapter from hers. There is Omni limited. The limit can be just one POV throughout the work. It can be a limit of not getting the thoughts. I use Omni limited. Think of it as watching a movie. There are several angles, places, and POVs. You just don't know what any character is thinking. This has to be learned from expressions or actions. There is another facet to third person. It can be in present or past tense. Jake strides to the door and finds it locked. Jake strode to the door and found it locked. Past tense reads that the writer already knows what will happen. Present tense reads as if the writer is learning the events as they happen. It also reads as more immediate. It lets the reader feel the discovery in real time. I have read books that slip back and forth between the two, but it can get confusing. Be consistent. Okay, on to the next topic. Writing dialogue and not using said as a tag or attribute. I am putting action tags in this segment because it is part of the mindset of POV. Action tags replace the he said, she said, or John said and Jane said. When using said, it is an invisible word. Readers don't see the said. The mind just accepts its indication. For me, there are 2 things wrong with it. 1, when I see it too many times, it's no longer invisible. It becomes jarring to me and takes me out of the story. 2, it's a waste of an opportunity. Why not use that said to build the scene or add to the character? Since the dialogue within a paragraph is confined to one character, once it is established who the character is, there would be no confusion as to who is speaking. Only one person speaking in a paragraph avoid confusion. And it is a standard practice that within a paragraph there is only one person speaking. Now here is a sample of saids. Tala said, "Captain, you sense a danger coming to the island and want to protect her. But I feel even if you and the other ships leave, the resources will still be here to deal with the danger. Thank you, that helps, the captain said. Sir, I think Anna and the children should leave to a safe place with the president. No, Tala exclaimed. What? Why not? The captain asked. He had gone tense. Captain, remember when Grandfather told you to keep Max at your side? He was right, and because you did, Max saved your life more than once and helped rescue Anna. This is something like that. Max and Willie both have a role to play. Like you, I don't know what, but they must stay. They and the guard can stay with me. Captain Myers said, Admiral, if it will help, we can make Ensign Carpenter the captain of the Peregrine. She's been trained on all the modifications to the ship. I can take over a second dreadnought. You were planning to reassign me anyway. The Admiral's coffee cup rattled on its saucer as the room shook. His papers danced across the desk and spilled onto the floor. When the room stopped at skitter, the Admiral said, What was that? An explosion? He looked out the window. Men were running in all directions on the docks, but not going anywhere in particular. There was no damage or smoke. It doesn't look like anything happened to the docks, he said. The office door opened and Ensign Pulver entered and asked, Did you feel that earthquake? Now let's redo that using action tags. Tala straightened her skirt. Captain, you sense a danger coming to the island and want to protect her, but I feel even if you and the other ships leave, the resources will still be here to deal with the danger. The captain relaxed back in his chair. Thank you, that helps. He looked at the Admiral. Sir, I think Anna and the children should leave to a safe place with the President. No, Tala stiffened upright in her chair and leaned forward. What? Why not? The captain clutched the arms of his chair. Captain, remember when Grandfather told you to keep Max at your side? He was right, and because you did, Max saved your life more than once and helped rescue Anna. This is something like that. Max and Willie both have a role to play. Like you, I don't know what, but they must stay. They and the guard can stay with me. Captain Myers slid forward to the edge of his chair. If it will help, we can make Ensign Carpenter the captain of the Peregrine. She's been trained on all the modifications to the ship. I can take over a second dreadnought. You were planning to reassign me anyway. The Admiral's coffee cup rattled on his saucer as the room shook. His papers danced across the desk and spilled onto the floor. When the room stopped at skitter, the Admiral stood up and looked out the window toward the docks. What was that? An explosion? Men were running in all directions on the docks, but not going anywhere in particular. There was no damage or smoke. It doesn't look like anything happened to the docks. The office door opened and Ensign Pulver, rubbing shaking hands on her skirt, stepped in. Did you feel that earthquake? No SEDS, and it works fine. Even shows the captain and Tala being tense without telling they were tense. Another feature of action tags is they can be at the beginning, middle, or end of a sentence and still work fine. Said at the start of a sentence is a bit jarring, although not wrong, which is why I put the example in the first one. An action tag works anywhere because it gives action like any narrative and indicate who the person is. The dialogue becomes assumed as to who is speaking. Even when others are mentioned in a paragraph, there's still no confusion as to the speaker. It is standard practice to only have one person speaking per paragraph. Joan placed a plate of food in front of Willie and tousled his hair. Eat up. No confusion why I had said. It even gives an impression that Joan likes Willie by the action without saying Joan likes Willie. I'm not saying don't use said at all. Just think on each one. Would an action tag work better? There's another plus to action tags. They can give indications of place, time, weather, or any other setting. The autumn leaf landed on Jane's head and stayed there like a small hat. Loan me your coat. This tells us that it's autumn, it's cold, and more than likely the vision of the leaf that we had was of an oak leaf, and it was brown. Now there's an odd story to my discovery of action tags. When I wrote my first novel, I used action tags more than said, although I did use said on occasion. During my second book, one individual kept slamming me for no tags or attributes. Finally, he was specific about what line he meant. It made me wonder what I was doing that seemed to be so wrong that nobody could understand it. It made sense to me because I'd used an action tag. That night I began a web search to find out what I was using and if it was a true writing technique. It took time because I didn't know what it was called. At last I found the name and searched that. Behold, it is not only a thing, but a big thing. I wondered where I had gotten that technique and decided it was from all the reading I had done. I had absorbed it and used it. A huge thanks to all the authors. There's too many to list. And it was very odd to me that every time I mentioned it to my fellow writers, there was so many that had never heard of the term action tag. Interesting. Some writers prefer the SAIDs. As always, it is your work. Think about any suggestions, then choose. There are other words to use besides SAID. Keep in mind these can also be jarring to some readers if used instead of SAID or action tags. I have a list of 199 substitute words for SAID. Acknowledged, accused, added, addressed, admitted, advised, affirmed, agreed, alleged, announced, answered, approved, argued, asked, asserted, assured, avowed. Well, that's it for the A's. I'll have a link below for the full list. And tip, as you noticed above, if you use an exclamation point, don't use exclaimed or shouted. The exclamation point already indicates that. Besides searching about the web about writing, reading is a good bet. So read, then read, and read some more. Until next time, write on.